Welcome everyone to the meeting for tonight. Um, my name is Joshua Bass. I'm a program coordinator with the Division of Professional Studies. I wanted to welcome you to the Entrepreneurship, Innovation, and Leadership Open House. I wish to remind everyone there's going to be a special raffle at the end of the open house, at the end of the presentations, but before the Q&A period. And you'll need to be present in order to be part of the live drawing to be eligible to win. So with that said, I'll turn it over to the graduate program director, Gib Mason.
So welcome tonight, Entrepreneurship, Innovation, and Leadership. So, how did we get here, right? Why is this even a program at UMBC? And about 15 years ago, I re-engaged with the university as an alum, was able to provide a lot to the university in many different ways. And the most significant way at that point in time was we had been funded by the Kauffman Foundation to look at how can we spread the entrepreneurial spirit, entrepreneurial thinking more broadly across our campus at both an undergraduate and a graduate level. We had a $2 million grant to work with to do that. And one of the primary things that we did was we looked at how do we begin a minor at the undergraduate level in entrepreneurship and innovation. We didn't have leadership in there at that point in time. And the key to what we did was not only did we create a few courses, which we did, and I created those and taught one or two of them, but we had the entire university, all the colleges, whether it was the social sciences or the computer sciences or the natural sciences, all of the different colleges got involved and began to infuse entrepreneurial and innovative principles into a lot of the curriculum, and really made for a fascinating run of the concepts of entrepreneurship and innovation kind of being inculcated into the university. If you're not aware, for the last, I don't even know what it is now, probably decade, we have been considered in the top 10 of most innovative universities in the country for teaching. And I think that's a big driver of it. And for many of those years, we were number one. And like 2, 3, and 4 would be like, small schools like Brown and Duke and Harvard and places like that. About 6 years ago, I had developed a lot of curriculum for the university's training centers, which is a non-credit training part of the university, or non-credit. Yeah, we do non-credit education focused on professional training. And I created the Center for Leadership and Innovation at the UMBC's training centers. And in so doing, created more than 50 courses that ran at least 40 hours, which is about what a semester runs when you look at it in its totality. I approached at that time, the gentleman, John, was the one that was running the Department of Professional Studies. And I said, hey, I think we have a master's degree sitting inside the work that we've done at the Center for Leadership and Innovation. Those courses were being delivered to companies like Legg Mason, like Exelon, like Harkins Builders, and other large entities, not just in the Baltimore, Washington area, but around the country. And we had gotten a tremendous amount of traction with that. I said, I can take these 50 courses and create a master's degree out of those courses. So we did. And this semester, which just started about a week ago, is the beginning of our 5th year in the program. We now have, let's see, I don't know how many different students are signed up this year, but we have 129 folks signed up in classes. Some of them are taking 1, some taking 2, some taking 3. So it might be, 60 unique individuals taking 130 classes this semester. Now there's only 7 courses offered, but you get the idea. We've really gotten a tremendous amount of traction. And we added the leadership component. Shouldn't have been left out to begin with. I think all 3 of these go together beautifully. But I don't think you can be a solid entrepreneur, a solid innovator, if you don't understand leadership. So we stuck leadership in there, and we just had a ton of success. So if you wouldn't mind, Josh, move us to the next slide. These are the 2 people that you will, and Josh might have a little bit of a delay. Thank you, Josh. That's me. There's my email address. If you have any questions after today, and you thought about it afterward, just shoot me an email. I'll be happy to respond to you. And then Renee is like my savior. If you have a question about the content, what courses to take, things along those lines, I'm the person to reach out to. If the administrative type of question, you're going to reach out to Renee. How do I fill out this form? Am I missing a form? How do I do this thing or that thing? Renee is your person. So those are our two. If you'd flip me again, Josh, I'd appreciate it. So what are we going to cover? We're going to cover the curriculum and the courses. I'll give you some ideas about the courses that we offer and what, kind of how we go about teaching these, essentially the philosophical underpinnings, if you will, of how we think about entrepreneurship, innovation, and leadership. At the very end, we'll hit some admissions information and then hit Q&A. Josh, kick us forward. So you'll have to excuse my background. I happen to be in a hotel in New York. I'm visiting some clients up here that I support. So here are the 6 required courses. Entrepreneurial mindset, the leadership and communication. So entrepreneurial mindset is taught every spring, or every fall, excuse me. Leadership and communication every spring. Legal ethic and ethical issues in entrepreneurship, innovation, and leadership is taught in the fall. And then entrepreneurial finance and planning is taught in the spring. And I'll talk about each of these in more depth in just a moment. And then finally, the 2 capstones, and I'll talk about why we have 2 in a moment as well, are taught in both the fall and the spring. Yeah, you can flip forward. Go ahead, Josh. Thank you. So we have 3 pathways, and this can be a little bit confusing. I'm a firm believer in entrepreneurship is more than just the person that starts a business or creates a product. It is that, but there's also preneurship that we refer to as intra. I might work inside of a company and I want to really gain some preneurial skills and kind of bring that entrepreneurial spirit into the company that I work with or work for. And then we have the socialpreneurship. And socialpreneurship is exactly that. It's focused on the folks that want to create a nonprofit or a social benefit organization. I've had the wonderful opportunity to be all 3 of these things, and I consider myself all 3 of these things. I've been in 10 different industries in my career. I've owned most of the companies that I have been involved with. And from an entrepreneurial perspective, I've worked for a couple of very large companies, including American Express Tax and Business Services. And I've certainly the university at this point, and I am an intrapreneur when in those environments. And I'll talk later on the social. I have created a foundation called the B for Students Foundation, and I'll give you some insight into that when we get into the socialpreneurial area. It says 3 pathways. So when you look at the website, you'll see some courses that are specifically aligned with these 3 things: entrepreneurship, innovation, entrepreneurship, and socialpreneurship. The other way that I want you to think about those is they are just more electives. So you can follow a pathway or not. When you graduate from the program or graduate or finish a certificate, your degree will say you have graduated with a master's in entrepreneurship, innovation, and leadership. It will not say with a concentration in one of these 3 areas. So just think about it as a way to look at what courses might be of most interest to me. But the reality is it's just additional elective courses that you can take. And candidly, the way to move through the program is to talk to me about your interests, and I can really help align you with some of the courses that might provide you the most insight in what it is you're trying to accomplish. And the courses that are aligned with them: the entrepreneurship, design thinking, sales and marketing, entrepreneurship. It has entrepreneurship, project management approaches. And then under socialpreneurship, we have creative problem solving and the socialpreneur. I also highly recommend, if you're going to go the socialpreneurial route, that you take the sales and marketing course as well. We used to have a sales and marketing was actually fundraising and marketing for the socialpreneur, but the differences just aren't unique enough as I dug into it to really keep that course in tow. So let me talk about these courses. design thinking and entrepreneurship, along with creative problem solving and the socialpreneur, are all taught by a woman named Carol Bogash. And there's a reason why she teaches all three of those courses, and that is they are identical in terms of not what we learn, but how we apply our learning. In all three of those cases, we bring in an external client and we solve for whatever that external client's needs are. So we may use design in a design thinking course, for instance. Actually, one of the times that I taught design thinking, we leveraged a company called Shapiro, which is a company that I sit on the board of. They're a very large importer, international importer and exporter. They have offices in the United States and talent in different ports around the world, China, Vietnam, and other places in Indonesia. We took on a project there where we focused on the 100 employees that they had in their offices here in Baltimore. How can we enhance the employee experience? That was the question. How can we enhance the employee experience? So over the course of a semester, the students met with, out of the 100 employees, actually like 98 employees, we met with about 85 of them face to face, many of them in groups, in focus groups, practicing different types of design thinking elements, whether it was journey mapping or brain mapping or coming up with the different, what word am I looking for? The different profiles of their customers. And so we were able to leverage all of we were learning in design thinking against a client. And when we have that opportunity to do it against a client, it just makes for a much richer environment. The learning is deepened. And I'll come back to how we deepen the learnings in the other courses in a few minutes. So whether I'm doing it in design thinking, creative problem solving, and the socialpreneur, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the coffee shop that's in Arbutus called Okamoka. That coffee shop was one of the creative problem solving and socialpreneur class when I taught it. We've also worked significantly with United Way of Central Maryland. One of the really unique experiences was we had the opportunity to tackle a problem that's referred to as ALICE. And ALICE is an acronym for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. So a person that is ALICE is asset limited, they're income constrained, they don't make a lot of money, but they are employed. And the big challenge for Alice is, so Alice shows up at the office one day and his or her boss walks up to them and says, I'd love to give you a promotion and a raise. Well, all of us would go, thank you, that's awesome, thank you. Boy, I can't wait. Alice says, I'll get back to you tomorrow. And Alice goes home and looks at the different benefits that he or she is because of the low income, and maybe they have a family. Maybe they're living in Section 8 housing, as it's referred to. And if they were to take that raise and promotion, it would kick them out of those critical benefits, or enough of them where they wouldn't be, the flip-flop is bad. I lose more than I gain. So what does Alice do? The next day, he says to their boss, boy, I really appreciate it. Thank you. I love my job, but I'm going to have to decline. That to me is the essence of the cycle of poverty, right? That's where we don't stand a chance of changing that cycle. So the class tackled that. And over a 16-week period, they had the opportunity to meet with many folks that fall in the category of Alice. They had the opportunity to spend time with the Maryland legislature to understand the things that they're trying to do to tackle it. They talked with a group out of Cincinnati, Ohio that had done similar work and got some great insights. It ended up producing a report that was over 125 pages long and was delivered to the Maryland General Assembly. So those are the kinds of things that happen, whether we're in design thinking, working with the entrepreneurship, creative problem solving, and the socialpreneur, and entrepreneurship. We work directly with the client to help try to understand a problem or challenge or opportunity that they have and provide some deep insight into that work. All three of those classes are fascinating. I have taught both the design thinking and the creative problem solving course in the past. Carol teaches those now. if you do become a member of the program, I highly recommend that you take at least one of those two courses, regardless of what your interests are, because the learning experience is really significant. Carol herself is a fascinating woman. She is a concert pianist, was educated at the Juilliard, and has spent years and years at the Smithsonian as one of the executive directors there. Just an amazing, amazing human being, and a wonderful person to learn from. Sales and marketing. Sales and marketing is exactly that. You focus on what it means to sell, what it means to market, and you will create a sales and marketing plan. So I'm going to stop for a moment and I'm going to jump back to a course that's not shown here because it really leads into this and to be talked about later, but let me throw it out now. The entrepreneurial mindset, that particular course, which you would take next fall, when you walk into that classroom, that you are going to come in with something. And what I mean by that is you're either coming in with a business that you're already trying to get up off the ground, or you have it off the ground and you're really trying to learn to deepen the quality of that business. You come in with a product idea or a service idea. You come in with a nonprofit concept that you're thinking about, or maybe you don't have any of those things. But what we will ask you to do in the entrepreneurial mindset is to come up with a project. Maybe you work for a company and there's a project that needs to be worked hard at. And I'll give you a quick example. We had a young man, Steven Saucer, who came into the organization. He had worked for about 5 or 6 years at Under Armour, had left there and gone to Northrop Grumman. He was a supply chain guy. And when he got to Northrop Grumman, he noticed that there were elements of the supply chain that he felt they could do a lot better. He brought that project into our learning, into the EIL program, and over the course of 2 years, fully developed that project. Ended up getting 2 promotions during that time, and a big piece of that was because of the work that he had done on that project. So you don't need to walk in the door with something, but when you get into the entrepreneurial mindset, you will have thought about something that you want to work on, whether you brought it with you or you've developed it there. So when you get into any of these other classes, design thinking, entrepreneurship, creative problem solving, sales and marketing, any of them, you're going to carry that project through learning. You will be asked, how does this apply to the work that you're doing on that project? In the design thinking, in the 3 courses that I described a little bit earlier, you will really focus on the client, but you'll also tie your learning into your project, which will then show up in your capstone at the end of the program when you take the capstone. So sales and marketing is exactly that. It's an opportunity to really out, and Jeremy's an instructor, and he is one of the most dynamic, energetic human beings that I have ever been around. I had the opportunity to hire him, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago into one of my companies. Just an amazing, amazing guy. And he will step you through not just the normal things that you might think about for sales and marketing. He's got a lot of very dynamic and unique ideas to share with you about how to think about your business differently from a sales standpoint. And by the way, if you're a nonprofit, you're still selling. You're selling to get the dollars through the door. You're selling to get the people that you're trying to service through the door. You're selling to get people to volunteer. I mean, I oftentimes run into folks that are interested in nonprofits, and they don't look at it through the lens of a business. It's a business. Now it's a nonprofit. It's for social benefit. Fantastic. I want you to be so successful that you get to continue to serve all the people that you're trying to serve. But too often, folks walk into that nonprofit environment and just believe it's the doing good that I'm doing that matters. It does. But without the financial resources to continue doing it, it doesn't matter that much, right? So we spend some time in the sales and marketing area. Project management approaches is taught by John Fitzpatrick. This is a great class, regardless of what you're doing. If you're not a project manager or don't really understand kind of the drivers behind running a project, the classic project management approach is what we refer to as waterfall. It's been around forever. It is a perfectly good approach to project management, but it's very old school, it's slow, it's not very agile. So he will talk a bit about that, but he'll really dive into concepts around agile, around lean, around mode two, just several different ways to think about how do you best manage a project in the environment that you're in. And he'll step you through all of that over the course of the semester. Another really fascinating class. Entrepreneurship really does dive into the entrepreneur. How do I operate in an environment that is a business that I don't own, I haven't created? How do I bring that entrepreneurial spirit into an organization? So those are those classes. If you'd flip the screen for me before I jump, any questions at this point? All right, boom. I'm clearly on a roll here. And thank you, Josh. So again, all the classes that I just talked about are electives. You can think about it through the lens of pathways or just think about it through the lens of electives. So here we go. We've got 4 other courses here. Decision making and negotiation. It's right now considered a special topic. One of the things that we've been doing each summer is reaching out to the students during the spring saying, what do you want to learn that we're not teaching? Right? What's your interest that we're not bringing you? And out of that, making a negotiation, product development and commercialization, source, secure, and service partnerships are 3 things that have been driven out of you, the students, deciding what you want to learn that we created courses for. And they've replaced some other courses that just weren't getting a lot of traction. Well, why weren't they getting a lot of traction? You weren't interested in it. I was interested in making the course. You weren't interested in taking it. So, when you have innovation as your middle name, that's what you do. You innovate. You think about things differently. So these 4 courses are electives along with the other 5. So we have a total of 9 electives, of which you'll take 5 of those. So decision making and negotiation, it is exactly what it says that it is. It is about how do we go about making decisions. There's a whole new field of study that's come out in the last 20, 25 years called behavioral economics. And it really deals with this and what is it that drives our decision making. And one of the books that you will likely find in there is a book called Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely. And it is what the title says, right? We are predictably irrational when it comes to a lot of our decisions, especially when it comes to economic decisions. So John Fitzpatrick will step you through decision making and what it means to negotiate, how to negotiate in a win-win environment that's not win-lose. You'll learn things about one of the classics is what we refer to as the mythical fixed pie. So I go into a negotiation and I've got a 9-inch pie. And if I'm going to win this negotiation, I have to come back with a little bit more than half of the pie. Well, that's one way to think about negotiating. That's win-lose, right? Somebody gets more, somebody gets less. But what if I took the time to actually communicate, to really spend some time trying to gain an understanding of what the other person's deep interests are, what it is they're trying to do with this negotiation? What do they need out of the negotiation? And the more we talk and the more we listen, most importantly, the pie grows. Now, all of a sudden, I've got a 12-inch pie. Well, if I only get 40% of that pie, I'm getting a whole heck of a lot more pie than if I got 51% of a 9-inch pie. So those are the kinds of things that we work through. How do you get to that point where that 9-inch pie becomes a 12-inch pie? What is it in negotiation that allows that to happen? And we talk about terms like BATNA, the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. That helps us, right? And on we go. So decision making and negotiation course, John Fitzpatrick again. There is a new course that's not even on here. I'll talk about that right now. And we haven't quite determined what the name of the course is going to be, but it's going to be something like team building and human resources management, something along those lines. And Kathy Hum, who is a longtime senior executive chief human resources officer, is working with me to develop that course, and it will be available in the spring. And exactly as it's named, you will learn a lot about how to build teams, powerful teams. One of the things that we know about the high-performing teams is it's when each person on the team is more concerned about the success of their teammates than they are their own success. It's a kind of love. And when everybody on a team feels that, I'm more concerned about the success of my teammates than I am my own success. It is amazing the heights at which you can take that team from a productivity, engagement, job satisfaction. It's just phenomenal when we are. I've had the opportunity to be on several teams like that over the years, and my hope is if you haven't, that you do have the opportunity to get there one day. So that will be another, and that course will be offered for the first time this coming spring. And we heard that from our students as well. We'd like to learn a little bit more about some HR management and what does it mean to build teams. Diffusion of innovation is taught by Sean Wolf. Sean is one of our other. You have a question? Go ahead. We're good? Okay. Um, is my other PhD. Sean and I met Sean about 20 years ago. And by the way, I also met Fitzpatrick about maybe 10 or 15 years ago. So these are all people that I know very well that really understand philosophically what we're trying to share. Sean's PhD is in leadership, is in executive leadership and coaching. Diffusion of innovation is exactly that. How do we innovate? What does that look like? And there's three phases that you'll hear about with Sean. It's harness, promote, and diffuse. There we go. What do we need to do to harness innovation in our organization? How do we begin to bring the concept of innovation into our company? Once we've got some legs there, once we've got a toehold, and we've harnessed that, how do we promote it? How do we promote it in different aspects in different areas of the business and begin to make some headway in different parts of it? And then once we get to diffusing is really where innovation becomes the oxygen that we breathe. It's just part of our culture. It's who we are. So how do we get to this point where we can really harness, get that toehold in the organization? How do we then promote that and get it more broadly accepted and practiced across the innovation? And then finally, how do we diffuse it? How do we just make it literally becomes part of who we are as a company? Fascinating course, and Sean is a fascinating guy. The product development and commercialization, another Fitzpatrick course. It is what it sounds like. If you are looking to bring a product to market, if you are looking to develop a product, it is a class that you need to take. He'll step you through the whole product development process. In my career, one of my companies was a company called 180s. We brought 115 new products, new to the world products to market in a 5-year period of time. Interestingly, 100 of those were abject failures. And out of the 15 that were successful, if we use baseball parlance, I had a handful of singles, a couple doubles, a triple or two, and a few home runs, one of which happened to be a grand slam. We went from 0 to 50 million in 5 years and sold the business to a hedge fund. So how do you develop product? How do you commercialize product? John and I have spent a lot of time together talking about that. It's a wonderful course. And again, was born out of the interest of the students. And it was first taught a couple of summers ago. I don't remember. Maybe it's being taught this coming spring. I don't recall. We'll see when we get there. And then source, secure, and service partnerships. This is another Carroll course. And it is exactly as it sounds. And if you think about business really forever, but certainly in today's environment, business is all about partnerships. It's all about the relationships that we create with our partners. I'm not talking about our teammates, right? That's the team building side. That's the diffusion of innovation side. This is where we look outside of our organization and where do we need the support? Who do we get the support from? How do we source that? Once we've sourced it, how do we secure it? What are the legal things that we need to be thinking about? How do we put a partnership together? What are we trying to accomplish with this partnership? What's that look like? And how does it work for both of us equally? And then finally, once we've got those partnerships put together, how do we service them? Are they a partner? A vendor? Well, if they're a vendor, they're not really a partner, in my view. I've always believed that we should treat our partners like we treat our teammates. And if you treat your partners like you treat your teammates, then you get a whole different level of service, a whole different level of relationship. And Carol will take you through that. Josh, if you can flip before. So 601, I talked a little bit about this earlier, the entrepreneurial mindset. This is where you gain an understanding of the mindset of an entrepreneur, what that looks like and feels like. The, there, in my mind, there are two different kind of ways to think about this, and whether it's a nonprofit or for-profit, or if you're in an organization. And this is very simply put. I'm either creating a lifestyle business or I'm creating what I refer to business of meaning. That doesn't mean that a lifestyle business doesn't have meaning, so don't get me wrong. The lifestyle business is a business that I create that provides me with the income that I need, usually only has, a handful of people in the business, income that I need to live the lifestyle that I want to live. Oftentimes in lifestyle businesses, you bust your ass, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. But oftentimes in lifestyle businesses, it's not that, because that's not the lifestyle you're signing up for. You create a lifestyle business. I want to be able to, cut out at 3 o'clock on Wednesday and Friday so I can go play 9 holes of golf. I don't want to work the weekends. And I've created a business that provides me with the income that I need, and he puts me in the lifestyle that I'm interested in. The business of meaning is the business that it transcends you. You develop a business beyond a point where you really matter. You no longer, you're important. Ultimately, the business can change hands. It can move from you to the generation that you've helped grow in the business. It can be sold to another entity or another individual to take that business and continue to build it. I've never put together a lifestyle business. I'll be honest about that. Every business that I've ever built was designed to last long beyond me. I fired myself from a couple of my own businesses because I believed that there were people in place that could do the work of maintaining and growing the business better than I could. From a personal standpoint, I am exceptional at getting businesses ideating, getting the ideas together, finding the right people to make it move and get it moved, but very fast. You heard me say, we took one company from 0 to 50 million in 5 years. I did a turnaround in another organization where we went from 23 to 52 million in 2 years. I'm really good at that. I suck at pretty much everything else. So when it comes to maintaining a business, you don't want me maintaining your business. I'm not the right guy. So a big part of the entrepreneurial mindset and the leadership and communication course, which I'll talk about in a minute, is helping you gain an understanding of who you are and what it is you're trying to accomplish and what you're willing to put into it to accomplish that. So, I'm a 63-year-old man that's been through 10 industries. Creating businesses that have life long beyond me is a grind, right? And I oftentimes say with tongue in cheek, lunch is for losers and who needs friends. But that's who I am, right? And so you need to understand who you are and how are you going to best take your skills into either a business, a product, a project, or a non-profit. And the entrepreneurial mindset will really help you do that. And also you will bring that germ of an idea and then grow it through the rest of the program. There are two segments to it. About the first half of the course, you'll do a deep dive into who you are. And you heard me say earlier that, I've done a lot of work with a bunch of very large companies as a consultant on entrepreneurship, innovation, and leadership. And that's why I'm in New York. And my belief is that I refer to it as self to symphony, which you might appreciate, Lou. I don't know the others. The concept of self, I can't really drive an organization. I can't conduct a symphony until I understand myself. So the first half of this class, you'll do an emotional intelligence assessment and gain a real insight into how you operate emotionally. There's 16 different elements to emotional intelligence. You'll touch on all of them. You'll understand where you have great strength and you'll understand where you have not such great strength. You will do a Myers-Briggs type indicator assessment, which will give you some more insight into how you operate. What are your preferences? And there's a series of 16 different categories there as well. 16 different categories. And there's a series of 4 different dichotomies that you'll look at, like introversion versus extroversion, feeling versus thinking, right? So there's 4 different sets of dichotomies, and you end up with a deeper insight into who you are. You'll do a conflict modes assessment. How do I operate in conflict? There's 5 different conflict modes, from competing to compromising to collaborating, avoiding and accommodating. What's my default? All 5 of those conflict modes have value. How do I get myself out of the default mode that I always seem to drop into when it comes to conflict? Because there are times when avoiding conflict is the right thing to do. I'm about ready to go into a meeting and I know the other person is fully prepared and I don't have all my arrows in my quiver. I'm going to avoid that meeting like the plague, right? I don't want to get into that conflict at that point in time. I'm not going to be any good. I'm going to get my butt whooped if I do that, right? There are times to accommodate. I think I have a better idea, but this person that I've been working with, I'm growing them. They're learning, they're developing like crazy. I'd love for them to be the one that makes the decision here. I don't think it's the perfect decision, but who cares? It's a decision that they've made that they can pursue. So you'll learn really deeply about who you are. One word on the first half of this class. The people that are willing to show up in this course vulnerable, and we oftentimes think about leadership as, boy, if I show up vulnerable, then that's not leadership. That is exactly leadership. The more willing to be, the more open you're willing to be with where where you can nail it and where you fall short. The more you learn about yourself and the more you allow your team to recognize that you don't have all the answers, right? None of us is as smart as all of us. And for those of us that think we're smarter than everybody, you've got something to learn. Phenomenal course. The back half of it is all about communications. How do we maximize our communications? How do we do it with clarity, succinctness? What are the different ways that we communicate? There's influence shows up in here. There's actually a whole influence assessment that you'll do as well. There's 9 different influence strategies. Which ones do I tend to default to? I need to understand all of them because they each have value. How do I leverage them? So this course in the entrepreneurial mindset really provides you with a lot of insight into who you are, force you to think about who you are, what it is you're trying to accomplish, and what you're willing to give. Right? What you're willing to give, what are you willing to give up to be that entrepreneur, that social entrepreneur, that entrepreneur? Legal and ethical issues. And here's my one and only real professor. His name is Dan Jenkins. Phenomenal guy. He works in the philosophy department at UMBC. He and I had lengthy conversations about, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur and how do the legal and ethical issues show up here? Here's what you're not going to learn in this class. You are not going to learn how to set up the appropriate corporate structure for your entity, whatever that might be. That's not what we try to do here. We try to help you understand what kinds of challenges you will face from a legal perspective as an intra-socialpreneur and what kind of ethical issues you need to grapple with yourself. What are your values? And how are you going to bring those values to life? How are you going to manifest those values in the organization? And are they ethical? This is one of the few classes that I didn't write the curriculum for, and everybody teases me and says it's because I'm neither legal or ethical. I like to think I'm at least ethical. I don't know about the legal part. We can check on that. Great class. This class is the only course that has some asynchronous elements to it, where you will actually be doing some of the work on your own time and not during a particular class period. It's the only one that's structured that way. All right, entrepreneurial finance and planning. This is Jason Pappas. This is not an accounting course. This is not a finance course. This is a course that helps you understand that cash is king in entrepreneurial and socialpreneurial ventures. How to manage cash, how to understand cash. There is some work that you'll do with income statements and balance sheets. If you know your way around an Excel spreadsheet, you're fine. If you don't, highly, highly recommend that you get online. There's all kinds of free courses that can you up to just a moderate level of understanding of Excel. If you walk into the course with no understanding of Excel, you're going to struggle. But again, you're not going to do debits and credits. You're not going to do the Black-Scholes model for figuring out the value of a business. We're not going into that kind of depth. It's really more about how do I think about operating an organization from a cash flow standpoint? What does that look like? Some basic understanding of income statements and balance sheets, and most importantly, planning. How do I plan budget-wise for my business? How do I think about that? And a quick thought is everything takes twice as long and costs twice as much as whatever you think it's going to be when it comes to business. One of the other things that Jason does, and Jason hired me actually, I don't know, it was probably in the early 2000s to become the CEO of his company. So he and I go back a long way as well. He has spent the last decade as a private equity guy. He so deeply understands what it means to have your finances in order and plan for those finances in a meaningful way. He's also very much of a mindset guy, and you will get some of that leadership element with him. You'll see leadership and innovation and entrepreneurship in every course. This particular course, Jason's very much oriented toward the leadership side when it comes to the finance and planning. All right, the two capstones. So when I did my master's degree, it was a 54 credit degree. I wish they had 30 credit degrees back then, man. That would have made it a lot easier and cheaper for that matter. So the one thing that I found is when I got to the end, and by the way, I finished my graduate degree the same year my youngest son finished college, and I finished my undergraduate degree the same year my oldest son finished high school, and they're 15 years apart. So by the time I had finished my undergraduate degree, I was in my mid 30s and had already burned a couple businesses to the ground, figuratively, not literally, and had already had a significant success. But also recognized the value of education and knew that it would serve me well over time. And I always wanted to do what I'm doing with you right now, and that is teach. And I knew it would not only require an undergraduate degree, but a graduate degree to do that. So I pursued that. But when I was wrapping up my graduate degree, my 52nd, third, and fourth credit, I got to do the capstone. And I thought, this is insane. I just spent, I just did whatever, 17 courses. And now this last course, you're going to tell me to take all the stuff that I learned in the first 17 and put it together in a capstone. Why didn't you tell me this to begin with? Why didn't you tell me what you were looking for? So that's why there's two different capstone classes. I'm going to encourage you in your second semester in the program to take capstone 1. And I'm the one that teaches the capstones. You take capstone 1 in your second semester. And when you come in, what that course is all about is it's about putting you in a position to understand what you should be pulling out of these classes and how to put it together in a meaningful way. You'll end up creating what we refer to as a product service plan. We could also call it a business plan. And by doing that early in your matriculation, you then go through the rest of your courses with a bit of a roadmap as the kind of things I need to be drawing out of my classes to help me get a better understanding, to really have something at the end that has real meat behind it. Capstone 1's probably not worth a full credit in terms of the amount of work you do. It's not much, but it exposes you to what we're looking for at the end. Flip to Capstone 2 for me, if you would, Josh. So interestingly, Capstone 1 and Capstone 2 are taught simultaneously. So you'll be in class when you're in the first capstone, you'll actually be in class with the folks that are in their final capstone. And what that does is it exposes you to where people have gone with their ideas and the depth of learning and understanding that they've been able to pull from the different coursework that they've done. You'll be able to see the kind of thinking, the things that are driving them, toward their outcomes. I'll give you a couple of examples. I'll just use first names. So Don decided that he was going to create a solar panel field in the middle of nowhere, Texas, because land was cheap and sun was readily available. And so he jumped into the coursework. And when he finished, not only had he laid out all the things that he needed to do to put this solar field together, but how to market it. And interestingly, it was in his mind, it was always a for-profit business. Don was a retired executive out of the SES, the Senior Executive Service in the government, and specifically in the military as a general. And so he had some capital to work with, not all the capital that he needed. But interestingly, as he went through the program, he took Carol's creative problem solving, the socialpreneur class, and ultimately decided to make his business a nonprofit and take the additional energy that was created off of his solar fields and provide it in the Texas area to nonprofits at no charge, along with selling some of it so that he could have the kind of cash flow that he would need to make that a consistent and ongoing business. Young woman created a health and wellness, yoga, meditation business going through the program. She's been wildly successful in the work that she does. I mentioned Steve Saucer earlier. He actually ended up moving to Utah when Northrop Grumman won the contract to do one of the next space launches. And he's running the logistics for that. So just amazing the different things that have come out of this. I had one young man that was taking algae and trying to turn it into leather. I had another woman that was she had a bakery and it was successful, and how can I make it more successful? And she's expanded that bakery. I've had students that were athletes. We have a lot of athletes in our program. Had students that were athletes. One young lady from Uganda was figuring out how to ship shoes back to Uganda, athletic shoes for children, and was able to pull that off. So there's just a myriad of different ways that you can go. Capstone 1 sets you up to really begin to think about, how do I pull the pieces from these other courses in to support what it is I'm trying to develop, or the project that I'm working on in my company, the company that I'm working for. Capstone 2 takes that 13 element product service plan and you turn it into a 50+ page report, or a business plan, if you will, and that's the bulk of that work. So Capstone 1, you're watching what Capstone 2 does. You're seeing what a business model canvas looks like, and how it gets treated and how it evolves over time. You're seeing them deliver that final capstone presentation of where they're headed and what it is they've accomplished through the program and what they're going to do with that. So you really get a deep understanding in Capstone 1 of what it takes. And then Capstone 2 is all that I just described to you. And there I am, a professional designing this program for professionals. Always got a kick out of that slide. Probably not so funny to you, but for a 63-year-old man, I think that's damn funny. All right, flip the slide for me again. So you leave it where it is, but let me speak to that design by professionals for professionals. So I've mentioned to you that I've written virtually all the curriculum in the program. That is true. The reality is that curriculum gets turned over to the instructors, and I ask the instructors to make it theirs, to put the things in that are unique about them, teach the things that they find welling within the context of the philosophical underpinnings of what it is we're trying to accomplish. And they do that. I also require that no course ever gets taught the same way twice. We are innovators. We are entrepreneurs. We are innovators, and we are leaders. And if we aren't constantly changing and evolving, then we're not doing our very best work as an organization, or our very best work for you. Flexible schedules and catalog reach back just means wherever you start in the program, whatever the requirements are at the moment that you start in the program are the same requirements, even if they change over time. Flexible schedules, we run our courses Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. Almost all of the classes are taught from 6 to 8:45. I mentioned the one course that is taught with some asynchronous elements. All of the other courses, it's not true. All of Carol courses are fully online. All of the other courses are what we refer to as hybrid light, meaning we will meet with you on campus at least once during the course of the semester. It may not be more than that, and it won't be more than 2 or 3 times. So there is an opportunity to come in and be face-to-face with your facilitator, which is what I like to call us. We're facilitators, not really teachers. We're facilitating your learning. But overwhelmingly, the courses are taught online and synchronous, meaning you have the instructor in front of you from 6 o'clock to 8:45 at night. There is one exception on the timing, and that is the 2 capstones run on Mondays always from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. These are the courses that will be offered in the spring. So you've got project management approaches on Monday, 6 to 8:45. You've got the 2 capstones on Monday from 4 to 6. None of you would be taking a capstone in the spring. I would imagine I would meet all of you in the fall. One. Design thinking on Tuesday with Carol, the finance and planning on Wednesday with Pappas, leadership and communication with Fitzpatrick on Thursday, and then that building teams and HR management will be taught on Thursdays as well, and that's taught by Kathy Hum. The highly encourage, depending on how long you want to take to get through the program. If you intend to take at least 4 semesters, not counting the summer, I encourage you to take one of the required courses each semester, not both. Take one each semester and then add to your schedule the electives. That way it'll give you more opportunity to see more different electives if you do it that way. If you take both of the required courses, each of the semesters that they're offered, you're going to limit the access that you have to elective courses. So that would be my encouragement there. A couple more quick slides. Go ahead, Josh. So there's the requirements, bachelor's degree. We could care less what your subject is. As a matter of fact, the broader the subject base in our program, the better. And we have them from all over the place, which is fantastic. It creates a really nice set of diversity of thought inside the program. The desired minimum GPA is 3.0. If your GPA at undergrad is not 3.0, then I am going to spend a lot of time looking hard at your goal statement so those letter reference. So if you're at a 3.0 or above, I will certainly read everything that you turn in. But if you're below a 3.0, those are going to be the elements that are going to make that decision easier for me to say yes if your goal statement resonates and your letters of reference show that you really are the superstar that we believe that you are. You'll need official transcripts, and then international should refer to the international admissions for special admission information. So yes, I expect you to be a good student. Yes, I expect that you're not going to cheat or do anything stupid like that. Last thing I want to do is pop you out of the program. I prefer that you stay in. So be a good citizen. Now go to the Q&A slide. So we'll just open it up. Questions, comments, things you wonder about. Anything I can help you with. Just dive in. Don't need to raise your hand.
Gotcha. So you mentioned earlier in your presentation deepening learning and how you all are facilitators of our educational experience. And I wanted to know if there was any way or if there is something outside of the academic setting that encourages networking or relationship building, maybe in a mentoring capacity of some sort.
Well, so a couple things. One, on campus there is the Alex Brown Center for Entrepreneurship, and the Alex Brown Center for Entrepreneurship puts on a tremendous amount of programming, whether it's guest speakers, whether it is the idea competition, which always happens in the fall, the business plan competition, which happens in the spring. And they'll run, they don't have programming every week, but I would suggest to you that they'll probably run 10 to 15 different programs over the course of the semester that are focused on the entrepreneurs, the innovators, and the leaders in the community. There's also a very vibrant graduate council. I don't know what they're called specifically. Josh, maybe you can help me with that. That also does a lot of programming that you can participate in as well. When it comes to networking, that is where the networking would take place. When it comes to mentoring, my encouragement there is every one of your facilitators, instructors, whatever, myself included, we are happy to support you and help you in any way that we can to get your idea from, ideation all the way through to finding a way to get yourself into business or open that nonprofit or whatever it is you're interested in doing. So I would suggest to you, you've got 6 or 7 different mentors in the program if you decide to treat them that way. Gotcha. Meaning you ask for it. Yeah, you're going to get it. All right. Well, Josh, apparently I've done a phenomenal job of getting all of the thoughts out. It just literally eliminated every one of the possible questions that could have been out there. Flip one. So here, transfer credits. We do have, you can get up to 6 transfer credits if you've taken some graduate courses that apply. You just need to talk to me about those, and I'll take a look at the course description, the syllabus, and the number of credits and make a determination as to whether or not that works. We have had that in the past, so it is of value. This slide deck will be shared with you, and so you'll have my email address. If you do have any other questions, please feel free to reach out and ask. I'm happy to support any questions that you have. Again, if they're more administrative oriented, Renee is going to be your person. I appreciate you all coming. All right, I'll end this the way I end every one of my classes. Peace, and I am living the dream. Dustin, glad to see you, my friend. We're done, baby. See y'all.
Peace.
Can't wait to see you in class.